Okay, YouTube, so today's project is remove and replace the lower control arm on a 1999 Ford F-150 four-wheel drive. So the plan is to remove the lower control arm because the bushings are bad and replace it with a brand new one. So I don't typically do automotive videos because usually there's a million of them out there, and I'm not going to do another video that everybody else has done. However, I was looking around on YouTube for some ideas how to go about doing this, and I didn't find any. I found a lot for the upper control arms and for other vehicles, but did not find one for a Ford lower control arm, and also how to remove the torsion bar. So if you're watching this video, you may have one of these vehicles and you know that they use a torsion bar for the suspension. So the major problem with this is how the heck do you get this torsion bar out of this control arm? And why I say that is because they are rusted in there and they might as well be welded in. So I'll walk you through the steps. I already did the passenger side and have it all back together. So I'll walk you through the steps of what I did, and should work for you. So I will admit I had to destroy the lower control arm to get it out, but as you saw, I'm putting a brand new lower control arm in, so I really don't care. The control arms are going to the scrap yard anyway. So, however, I do not want to destroy the torsion bar because it's still good, and no point in putting a new one in when they're working just fine. So, obviously, truck's up in the air. First thing you have to do is relieve the tension on the torsion bar. Okay, so really quick, I'm just going to show you how to relieve the torque from the torsion bar. So obviously vehicle's up in the air, no weight on the lower control arm. So here's the torsion bar, this is the torsion bar cross member, and then this is the torsion bar key and the bolt. This bolt goes in and out, and that's how you can add and decrease torque to the torsion bar. So we want to back this bolt out, and then we'll need to use a 2-jaw puller to finish getting this keeper out. So I have marked back here, you can't see it, the end of the torsion bar in relation to the cross member, so that when I put this back together I can put it back where I found it. But the other thing I'm going to do is actually do measurements on the suspension and then fine-tune each of these to make sure that both driver side and passenger side suspension are sitting at equal heights. So I've already had this out once, so it's not incredibly tight. But I wanted to show you guys exactly how you do it if it is under quite a bit of torque. So there's another divot in the key here. This is specifically for a tool to do this. They have some other C-clamp looking special tool, but this works just fine. So once you get the pressure off, just slide this thing out and back the pressure off of the puller. And there you go. So the torque has been released from the torsion bar, And now you can disconnect the lower control arm and start working on getting the control arm and the torsion bar separated from each other. Okay, so I got everything off of here. Shocks out, sway bar, bushings are out. The lower control arm bolts are out. So the problem is now the braces back here for the torsion bar. So you can see here I'm hitting this brace right there. So the control arm won't actually drop any further. So that's as far down as I can get it, and that's not enough to allow me to work on the torsion bar and whatnot. So what you need to do is unbolt that torsion bar cross member. So right here is here's the torsion bar, here's the key, and so this is the cross member right here. So there's 3 bolts. There's a main one there, and then these 2 smaller ones. Okay, so I'm going to remove these 3 bolts here that hold the cross member, torsion bar cross member, to the frame. This will allow the cross member to float up, which then will allow the lower control arm to drop down. Okay, so you can see now we have much more clearance for getting this control arm out. So disconnecting that cross member makes a big difference. And the nice thing is you don't have to do anything with it. You just let the cross member float up, and it allows this lower control arm to pivot down. Okay, now to get to the part that everybody's probably been waiting for, which is how to get the control arm and the torsion bar separated. So, a little bit of history. I tried multiple things before I got to this point to decide to cut this thing off. So that's how we're going to get this off, is by cutting it. As you can see, there's oil around here. I have been spraying penetrating oil in the joint here for the past week, hoping that would help. That did not help. I smashed it with a hammer, trying to get it off. Nothing. I used this puller here, this 2-jaw puller, and actually hooked it over the back side and was hoping that I could press the 2 apart, and that did absolutely nothing. I also came up with a system where I was actually able to set up this 4-ton jack and use it as a press, and that also did nothing. So at this point, some of you are probably yelling at the video saying, why didn't you just torch it? Heat the thing up, heat the control arm up very hot to break that rust free and then knock it off of there. The reason for that is I am not getting rid of the torsion bar. I want to reuse the torsion bars, and I do not want to apply a ton of heat to an already heat-treated piece of metal. This is spring steel, and risk damaging that torsion bar that then I'm going to be relying on for my suspension. So for me, heat is not an option, and that's why I'm trying all these other avenues. So basically what I came up with was I am going to use my trusty angle grinder here with a cutoff blade. So what I found was right here is one of the thinner points of the metal to cut through. So I'm going to cut it right through here, and I'm going to stop before I get to the torsion bar, because once again I do not want to do any damage to the torsion bar. Okay, you guys can see that I got my cut here. Smacking it with the hammer did crack it, but I drove this chisel in here to just give it a little bit more spread, so it should let go of this a lot better. So now I'm just going to put my puller in here. I'm using a nut on the end of the puller just because this has a nice point on it and I don't want to damage it. This isn't exactly what this thing was designed for. Okay. So I can already see that it's moving. It's pressing the torsion bar out. So we're just going to sit here and do this for a while. So it stays pretty tight. I found it was just easier to use the puller to press it all the way out versus trying to hammer it at all, because my puller is large enough that it has a long enough throw. It'll just push it all the way out. So you guys hopefully can see that. You can see where it was, and it's making its way very nicely. And there we go. Okay, so spun the wheel to the left a little bit to open this up, my work area. Everything's disconnected from the control arm. I'm going to smack this here to pop this ball joint out. Alright, here we go. So you really have to go in at this angle and have the ball joint angled pretty steep to get it to go past the axle. And so that's what we're going to have to do to get the new one in also. Okay, there we go. So new control arms in. It's all hooked up. So per my manual, the control arm bolts get torqued to 150 foot-pounds, each of them, and then the ball joint castle nut here, that gets torqued to between 80 and 110 foot-pounds. So that's going to wrap up this video. Hopefully this helps out some people with getting these things off and putting some new ones back on. See ya.